Okay, let's go straight into Talmud, friends. If you have this book, it is the Eye of Jacob. Ein Yaakov is what it's called. It's a collection of the stories and inspirational components of the Talmud, since the legal components, the technical components of Talmud. And today we're going to be approaching a fascinating concept, the idea of why the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper. We're going to be doing it from a Talmudic perspective. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm on page 99 in the Black Talmud in the book called Ein Yaakov, published by Art Scroll Masorah Publications. If you have it, good. If not, just listen in. You can buy the book through the shul office over here. Call Ashley at the shul office, 561-624-2223 to buy your copy. A very nice book to have at home regardless. It's very important to have Jewish books at home, just to adorn your shelves, to bring a sense of holiness to your home. Let's go straight into it. Said Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Yossi, when the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, God threatened to destroy them, but Moses prayed for mercy, and God accepted his prayer. Still, God told Moses that his divine presence, his Shekhinah, would no longer go with them on their journey to the land of Israel. An angel would lead them instead. At that point, Moses asked for three things from the Holy One, blessed be He, and God granted him all three of them. Fascinating stuff. So what is it that a mortal like Moses asked of God? Three things that all three of them were fulfilled. Let's take a look. These three requests were, number one, he asked that the divine presence rest on Israel, on the Jewish people, and God granted this to him. You see, God had told Moses that his divine presence would no longer go along with the Jews as it had until now, but instead he would send an angel. Moses pleaded with God to cancel this terrible decree, and God granted this request. God governs the other nations and their lands through intermediaries like angels and the constellations. Remember the constellations, if you've studied this class with me about the zodiac, constellations are a form of angels, which are intermediaries through which God uses to govern the other nations of the world. The Jewish people in the land of Israel, however, he governs them directly. As it says explicitly in the verse in the Torah, Tamid einei Hashem elekecha ba, always the eyes of God, your God, are upon her, Mereshit Hashana, from the beginning of the year, V'ad Acharit Shana, until the end of the year. It's talking explicitly about the land of Israel, which is the apple of God's eye. Everything else can be governed by other intermediaries like angels and constellations. So the Jewish people in the land of Israel, however, he governs directly. It was this special relationship that Moses prayed for at this juncture, and God granted him this request. That's number one, the first thing that Moses prayed for, that he received. We see that Moses asked for this because it says, Moses said to God, how then will it be known that I have found favor in your eyes, I and your people, unless you accompany us? That is, unless your divine presence rests on us. The second request that Moses asked of God, Moshe asked that the Shekhinah should not rest on the idolatrous nations, and God granted this to him too. We see that Moshe asked for this because it says, I and your people will be made distinct from every people upon the face of the earth. Now this one is a continuation of the verse in which Moses asked that the divine presence rest on Israel. Here Moses requested that the Jewish people be distinguished from the other nations, in that the divine presence would rest only on the Jews and not upon any other nation. This request too was granted, says the Talmud. The Chassam Sofer explains, a commentary in the Talmud explains why Moses made this request for the exclusivity of Israel at this time. You see, the Jews had just sinned with the golden calf. It was our most embarrassing moment in all of history. The golden calf was like committing adultery a week after your wedding. We had just married God at Mount Sinai, and just 40 days later, we were serving idols. So the Jews had just sinned with the golden calf, which strained the relationship between God and the Jewish people. Thus, it was possible that a saintly person amongst the other nations might recognize the Creator, withstand the trials, and maybe he should be chosen by God. Just as Abraham had been chosen by God and become the patriarch of another chosen nation. That's what Moses was worried about. Until the sin of the golden calf, such a development would not have been unwelcome to Israel, since it is indeed our hope that the entire world come to know God, but not to the replacement of the Jewish people. However, after the sin of the golden calf, it became possible that such a new nation would become superior to Israel. Remember, God tells Moses, he's like, I'd like to wipe out this nation of Israel, God forbid, and begin a new nation from you. So Moses was concerned that the Jewish people would be replaced by another chosen nation. Therefore, Moses prayed for the sake of Israel's honor that God rest his presence only upon them, and for his presence to rest on any saintly non-Jews. They would have to join Israel through conversion. So for a saintly non-Jew to have the divine presence rest upon them, they would have to join the Jewish people through conversion. Okay, that was the second request that Moses made from God, which was granted. The first one was that God changed his mind about abandoning his personal providence over Israel as they traveled to the promised land. Accepted. The second one, it was exclusivity of God's providence over Israel and over no one else. The third, Moses asked to be told the ways of the Holy One, blessed be he. And this is the subject of what we're learning about today. When we're speaking about why the righteous suffer and why the wicked prosper, Moses is seeking to answer the enigma. I'd like to understand the ways of God. Let's see how he manages to get this done. I see that our YouTube feed is really not working. I'm just going to cancel it. Okay. So nice to see everybody here on Facebook Live. As we proceed, Bob Wertheimer, good morning. Whitney McNair from Amsterdam, nice to see you. Dvorchana, Julia, and Brandon, Dvorchana, Graciela, Adrian. Great. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. So the third request that Moses asked of God, which was accepted, is as follows. Moses asked to be told the ways of the Holy One, blessed be he, with regards to reward and punishment. Wow. Let's see what he comes up with. That's what we're going to learn today. And God granted this to him as well. We see that Moses asked for this because it says, make your ways known to me. Hodi'eni na et derachecha. The Gemara now explains the meaning of Moses' request that the ways of God be made known to him. Let's get into the details. Moses said before God, Master of the universe, why are there some righteous people who have good things happen to them, and other righteous people who have bad things happen to them? Why are there some wicked people who have good things happen to them, and other wicked people who have bad things happen to them? Why? This is the question of Moses. If you've got the same question, you and Moses, you're on the same page. God said to him, Moses, a righteous person who has good things happen to him. This is God's response. A righteous person who has good things happen to him is a righteous person, the son of a righteous person. Whereas a righteous person who has bad things happen to him is a righteous person, the son of a wicked person. So the righteous son suffers because of his father's sins. Wow. We're getting warmed up. As to your question of why the wicked prosper, a wicked person who has good things happen to him is a wicked person, the son of a righteous person. So the wicked son prospers because of his father's merits, whereas a wicked person who has bad things happen to him is the son of a wicked person. That's what the Talmud tells us. Now we're left with a head scratcher here. We're like, really? So the righteous who prospers because of their father's righteousness, and the righteous who suffers because of their wicked fathers? I mean, definitely something to think about. But let's go deeper into this. Moses didn't simply ask why tragedies happen to good people. While many wicked people enjoy lives of comfort. Moses didn't simply ask why tragedies sometimes happen to good people while many wicked people enjoy lives of comfort. If that were the only question, we could answer that God punishes the righteous in this world in order to cleanse them of the few sins they committed, so that when the righteous will come to the next world, they will be pure and be able to enter heaven immediately. Conversely, we would have said that God rewards the wicked in this world for the few merits that they did, so that he will not have to reward them in the next world. But when we see one righteous man who has a good in this world, and another righteous man who suffers, or conversely, when we see one wicked man who suffers in the world and another wicked man who has a good, then the above answer is insufficient. So the question really isn't why the righteous prosper and why the righteous suffer and why the wicked prosper. It's why the inequality? That's the question. Why do some wicked prosper and some wicked suffer? Why do some righteous prosper and some righteous suffer? What's going on? Explain to me your ways. This is the question that Moses turns to God. Let's understand the answer that the Talmud tells us. The Talmud objects that this could not possibly have been God's answer. Ini, in Aramaic, ini, really? Is that a fact? This is the Talmud's question. The master has said that God answered a righteous person who has good things happen to him as a righteous person, the son of a righteous person. Whereas a righteous person who has bad things happen to him is a righteous person, the son of a wicked person. How can this have been God's answer? Is it really true that a righteous person might suffer for the sins of his wicked father? But we see from the following discussion that that's actually inaccurate. Hi, Ashley. That's actually inaccurate. It doesn't work that way. There are a few verses that say different things, and we're about to destroy this position. This could not possibly have been God's answer. And it said, in one verse it says in Exodus, visiting the sins of the fathers upon the sons, visiting the sins of fathers upon the sons, which seems to say that children do suffer for the sins of their fathers, seems consistent with our Talmud. But in another verse it says in the last book of the Torah, in Dvarim, and sons shall not be put to death because of their fathers. Lo yumtu, uvanim lo yumtu alavot. And sons shall not die for the sins of their fathers, which seems to be explicit that children do not suffer for the sins of their fathers. So we've got a real problem here. These two verses seem to conflict with each other. Poked avon avot al banim in Exodus says visiting the sins of fathers upon the sons, whereas in Deuteronomy, the final book of the Torah, Vanim lo yumtu alavot, and sons shall not die for the sins of their fathers, is in conflict. So we, the sages who discuss this, ask that the verses seem to contradict each other. The first verse says that sons are indeed punished for the sins of their fathers, whereas the second verse says that they are not punished for the sins of their fathers. The answer, the resolution of the conflict is that it is not difficult. There is no conflict. Why? The verses are speaking about different cases. This is a very typical Talmudic answer, which explains that two seemingly conflicting truths are actually talking about two different cases. Why? The first verse, which says that sons are punished for the sins of their fathers, refers to where sons hold on to and repeat their fathers' wicked deeds. When they follow in the legacy of their fathers, in the wicked legacy of their fathers, then we tack on to their own demerits, the demerits of their fathers. In that case, the wicked son is punished not only for his own sins, but also for his father's sins. Whereas the second verse, which says that sons are not punished for the sins of their fathers, refers to where the sons do not hold on to and do not repeat and do not follow in the legacy of their wicked fathers. And that's why we actually are able to resolve the conflict of these verses. Thus, we see from this discussion that a righteous son who does not follow in the ways of his wicked father will not suffer from the sins of his father. If so, we're going back to our conversation where Moses asks of God, Hodieni na et derachecha, reveal to me, please, your ways. Why is it that there is an equality? Why do some righteous suffer and why do some righteous prosper? Why do some wicked prosper and why do some wicked suffer? We're stuck now because if so, based on what we just said, how can you say that God answered Moses that when bad things happen to a righteous person, it's because of the sins of the father? It's because it's a righteous person, the son of a wicked father. We just explained in the Talmud that when a son rejects the legacy of his wicked father, he is not punished for his wicked father's sins. And we're stuck. The Gemara accepts this argument. The Talmud accepts the argument and says that God's answer must actually have been a different answer. Rather, what God's response to Moses was actually like this. Rather, this is what God told Moses. Moses asked of God, Hodi'eni nai derachecha, reveal to me, please, your ways. The third of three requests which Moses asks of God that he acquiesced, that God granted Moses. God's response was actually as follows: a righteous person who has good things happen to him is a completely righteous person who did not commit any sins at all. Whereas a righteous person who has bad things happen to him is a righteous person who is not completely righteous, but has committed some sins. God punishes him in this world for the few sins he committed, so that he will be entirely cleansed when he dies, and so that he will go straight to the Garden of Eden to receive his reward for his good deeds. So if you're completely righteous, then you don't suffer in this world, you prosper. If you're incompletely righteous in this world, you've got, let's say, 1% sin, so God will make you suffer in this world so that you'll have a clean slate and be ready to fly, ready to soar when you reach heaven without any baggage. And that's the reason, that's the answer that God answered Moses, according to the Talmud, as to why some righteous prosper and why some righteous suffer. And the same thing on the flip side. A wicked person, God's answer to Moses was like this: a wicked person who has good things happen to him is a wicked person who is not completely wicked. So the wicked person who prospers is the wicked person who's not 100% wicked. He's got, let's say, 5% good. God rewards him with good in this world to prosper, in order to pay him completely for the few merits, the few mitzvahs that he did, so that when he dies, he will receive nothing but punishment in the world to come. So that when he reaches heaven, he won't have any merits, and he'll be able to send him straight to the basement. Whereas a wicked person who has bad things happen to him is a wicked person who is completely wicked. That's the wicked person who suffers in this world. There's nothing to reward him for. Interesting. It puts things into perspective now. We've definitely got something to think about the inequality, where you can't say, well, we both went to shul on Shabbos for 2 years, and why is he prospering and I'm suffering? You've got to be able to see things in a bigger picture right now. It definitely gives us something to think about. You can't blame your fathers, the parents. You've got to be able to look deeper and see into your own heart if there is still any wickedness or not, right? I think that we can definitely understand this within the context of Tanya, that we have two souls within us, a godly soul and a natural soul, and they're in conflict, a self-centered soul and a mission-oriented soul. A tzaddik, a righteous person, is one who has vanquished, slaughtered his natural soul. Like King David says in the book of Psalms, "V'libi chalal b'kirbi," and my heart is hollow within me. He actually killed his animal soul. He only had a godly soul. But if you didn't totally vanquish your natural soul, you only subdued it, but there is a little bit of power that it has, that's not a perfect tzaddik. We can understand this within the context of what we've been learning on Tuesdays in the book of Tanya. If you'd like to hear more about that, you can find more Tanya classes at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. That's youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, where you can find all of our classes clearly organized according to playlist, according to topic and interest. Rabbi Yochanan has cited Rabbi Yossi, who says, this is the final piece of Talmud before we dive a little deeper. Rabbi Yochanan has cited Rabbi Yossi. He was the one who introduced this whole topic, who says that God granted all three of Moses' requests. Another Tana, however, another Talmudic sage, disagrees with Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Yossi, who says that God granted all three of Moses' requests, he disagrees with Rabbi Meir. For Rabbi Meir said, 2 of Moses' requests were granted to him, whereas one of his requests, the third, that God tell him his ways of reward and punishment, that one was not granted to him. As it says, I shall show favor and give reward to whom I choose to show favor. This implies that I will show favor and reward to someone even though he is unworthy of favor, and I will show mercy to whom I choose to show mercy, which implies even though he is unworthy of mercy, that is, I am not revealing to you my reason for doing this. According to Rabbi Meir, he disagrees with the premise of Rabbi Yossi. The question is how they read the actual verses within the Torah. They clearly agree that Moses asked the third request, so the Eini Nai Terechecha, reveal to me, please, your ways. Why your ways of reward and punishment? But whether God acquiesced to their request or not is a conflict of the Talmudic sages. Rabbi Yossi says he did, and Rabbi Meir says he didn't. According to Rabbi Meir, then, there are times when the reason that good things happen to good people, there are times when the reason that good things happen to bad people and vice versa remains a mystery to us. But God was basically telling Moses, sorry, this is something which I'm not revealing to you. I will show favor to whom I choose to show favor, and I will show mercy to whom I choose to show mercy, even though he might be unworthy. Rabbi Meir's opinion is like that of Ethics of the Fathers in chapter 4 that says it is not within our ability to grasp either the tranquility of the wicked or the suffering of the righteous. So you got to bear in mind that as we look at this macro question, this massive question, which affects not only our generation, but all of the generations of human history, how God judges reward and punishment, there's two lines of reasoning here. One is that God did respond did acquiesce to Moses' request, and he did explain to him the secret to reward and punishment, that it has to do with whether you're perfectly righteous or imperfectly righteous, whether you're perfectly wicked or imperfectly wicked. And another school of thought is that no, God refused to acquiesce to that request. It's a Talmudic debate. And that, therefore, God does not reveal how he judges. It is not within our ability to grasp the tranquility of the wicked or the suffering of the righteous. And yes, Marty, when I said the basement, I meant Gehinnom. I meant purgatory, yes. Okay, so let's dive deeper into this fascinating topic. When the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper. This Talmud touches upon one of the most vexing questions in Jewish thought. One of the foundational principles of the Torah is that God rewards people for their adherence to his will and law and punishes people for their disobedience. This is the basis of our adherence to the laws of the Torah. How then do we understand the phenomenon of righteous people who suffer and wicked people who prosper? As Nachmanides Ramban writes in his introduction to the book of Job, Job was this very righteous individual who suffered. He was the paradigm, the epitome of a righteous person who suffered. Nachmanides writes in the introduction to the book of Job, this is a question that pains the heart and troubles the mind, which has led many throughout history to abandon their faith. In the opinion of many commentaries, the entire book of Job was written to discuss this topic in detail. The question is in fact asked by the prophets themselves. Jeremiah the prophet says, you are righteous, God, though I may express a grievance to you, but I'll speak with you of judgment. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? And why are the betrayers tranquil? Jeremiah asked this of God. Moses asked this of God. The prophet Habakkuk cries out, how long, Hashem, will I cry out and you do not hear me? How long will I cry to you regarding injustice and you will not save? Why do you allow me to see iniquity and you look at evil deeds with robbery and injustice before me, while the one who carries strife and contention still remains? This is the prophet Habakkuk quoted. That is why the Torah is weakened and justice never emerges. The prophet continues, since the wicked surround the righteous, therefore justice emerges distorted. Your eyes are too pure to see evil, and you cannot look upon wrongdoing. Why then, God, do you look upon betrayers? Why do you remain silent when a wicked man swallows up one more righteous than he? This is Habakkuk. Similar concepts in the book of Psalms and in Ecclesiastes of King Solomon. The question can be not only theological and philosophical, but deeply emotional and highly individualistic. And the literature on this topic is vast. Let's analyze a sampling culled from the works of the early Torah commentaries outlining some of the major approaches to why it is that the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer. We're going to take a look at just a couple of the most famous answers to this incredible question, which has been not just philosophical, but also deeply emotional, something which has caused so many of our people to abandon their faith. especially now times after the Holocaust. The book of Job is mentioned. Many understand that this question is the very theme of the book of Job, especially as the book is explained and elaborated by the commentaries of Ramban, Nachmanides, and Malbim. Now, Rav Saadia Gaon was an early Torah commentary. He explains as follows: the righteous may suffer because of some slight failings of theirs, or as a trial to demonstrate their loyalty and devotion to God, as a trial. So we've learned in the Talmud that they might suffer because they're imperfectly righteous. But another one is that it's a test. Sometimes their suffering is meant purely to increase their ultimate reward, as in the case of children who suffer, who will undoubtedly be compensated for their suffering. Divine favor received as compensation is far superior to favor that is not earned. The wicked may be allowed to prosper because God knows that they will eventually repent, or because of righteous offspring that they may bear, or to repay them for the few good deeds that they have done. Wow. There's a lot of reasons here. I'm going to do this again slowly. So the wicked, and this is Rav Saadia Gaon, the wicked may be allowed to prosper because God knows that they will eventually repent. So God knows the future. Now they look wicked, but eventually they're going to be righteous. And that's why God, who is timeless, who knows the future, is rewarding them now because of what you don't see, but God knows already. Or because of righteous offspring that they may bear. We've seen many righteous people come from very unlikely circumstances. And maybe that's the reason, because you simply don't know the future. Or to repay them for the few good deeds that they have done. This is what we've discussed in the Talmud. The imperfectly wicked are rewarded in this world because God repays their merits in this world. Right? That's another reason we just explained in the Talmud. Or a fourth reason that the wicked prosper, that they should serve as instruments to punish those even more wicked than they. So the wicked will prosper to serve as instruments, as tools to punish those even more wicked than they. So God will reward a certain wicked person in order to punish somebody even more wicked with the circumstance. Maybe all the money of the wicked person will go to somebody less wicked, so that not that the wicked is prospering, but that the other wicked, the more wicked, will suffer. Or because the righteous person has prayed for them. That's another interesting reason. Not what you know, but who you know. Maybe a righteous person has prayed for that wicked person. Or because this will lead to an even more severe punishment for them in the end. Lots to think about over here from Rav Saadia Gaon. Let's take a look at Chayvas Alavavis. This is what we've been learning in the Gates of Trust. The Gates of Trust that we've been learning at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. You can find all the Gates of Trust classes at jewishgardens.com/trust. So we'll be familiar with the next approach. Chayvas Alavavis, Gates of Trust, explains similarly. This is an 11th century Spanish sage. Rabbeinu Bachai explains that a righteous man might suffer because of some earlier sin that he committed, or he might suffer in order to increase his reward in the world to come. This involves the concept called afflictions of love, which we've spoken about in our classes. Afflictions of love. Or he might suffer to demonstrate how faithful and loyal he is to God, despite his suffering, as a test. The purpose of why the righteous will suffer is in order to show their tremendous commitment and devotion to God, to increase their merit as a test, and to serve as an inspiration to others, so that other people might learn from his example. It might also be that although this man is personally righteous, he has not exerted himself sufficiently to correct the errant way of the other people of his generation. Wow. So you might be righteous, but you know what? You're not righteous enough. You should have worked harder. Vis-a-vis your environment, you might be very much lacking. So there's not only your merits looked at on a black and white level, right and wrong checklist, but there's also what you could have done for your environment. You were born to this world for a reason, to influence and inspire your environment. How impactful were you on your environment? That's what the Gates of Trust says, is a few different reasons why the wicked will suffer and the righteous will prosper. The wicked will prosper, and the righteous will suffer. Lots to think about, friends. I'm curious to hear your comments and feedback here on this very interesting topic. Lots of good reasons here to think about. Conversely, the gates of trust continues. God might make a wicked person prosper in order to repay him in this world for some good that he has done, so as not to reward him in the world to come. We've just learned this in the Talmud, because he is imperfectly wicked. In some cases, God allows a wicked person to amass wealth to ultimately benefit a righteous descendant of his or some other righteous person who will inherit that wealth. So you can't look at this moment alone. You can't look at a balance sheet and see the snapshot in time and say, well, that person's wicked and he's got money and I don't. You can't look at it that way, because maybe he's amassing wealth only in order so that he'll die tomorrow and that his wife will inherit it, and she might marry somebody who's righteous and they might become righteous people. Or maybe his son will be righteous. So there's far, far more than meets the eye than we could ever possibly see because of our limited vision. Sometimes the gates of trust tells us the wealth that a wicked person amasses is in fact to his detriment, contributing to his ultimate downfall. What we think is a good thing, is a blessing, is a prospering, is really the bane and the downfall of that person. How many people have we heard of that they won the lottery and that destroyed their marriage, that led them to suicide, and led them to drugs, alcohol, and the end of their lives? So just because they won the lottery, it doesn't mean that they're prospering. In many cases, that's the worst thing that could ever happen to them. Or perhaps as he prospers as a reward, not to him, but to one of his righteous forebearers. Right? That's happened. We've seen that in the Torah, where people have been promised reward for their children. Your children will live happily because of you. And sometimes the wicked are allowed to prosper in order to separate the genuine servants of God from the pretenders. That's a test. As the latter will be attracted to the wicked man in his ways, while the genuine servant will remain pure. So God is testing everybody else. He wants to show the righteous suffering and the wicked prospering, so that you and me will be able to be tested and to see where our loyalties lie. Are our loyalties with resources, or our loyalties with God truly? And these are some fascinating reasons, some fascinating ideas. We spoke, just to summarize, we mentioned the book of Job, whose entirety was written to answer this question, to give us much to think about with regards to why the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper. These ideas in the gates of trust, there's so many reasons of here which were clearly listed in the gates of trust, but just to summarize, that it might be for earlier sins committed. It might be, so the righteous will suffer for earlier sins committed. The righteous will suffer to increase their reward in the world to come. Like we spoke about the concept of afflictions of love. It might be a test to test their faith and loyalty in God. It might be to test other people. It might be because you haven't worked hard enough vis-a-vis your environment. You might not be as righteous as you think you are. And the same converse with the wicked. So lots of reasons to think about. Let's take a look at one more perspective from Nachmanides, Ramban. So Ramban expands on many of the ideas presented above. In addition, he treats at length the concept of God subjecting the righteous to the test of suffering, which, if they pass the test, will ultimately elevate the name of God in this world and increase their reward. So when the righteous suffer, they're sanctifying the name of God to show their undying devotion for God. Let's say they're being killed for their faith. Shows the tremendous devotion to God, and it sanctifies the name of Hashem, which is the greatest mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying the name of God. And certainly it increases their reward. But Nachmanides introduces a fascinating angle to this whole conversation of why the righteous will suffer and the wicked will prosper. He introduces us to the concept of reincarnation, of Gilgul Neshamot. Fascinating concept. When you see today the wicked prospering, how do you know what that person was in a previous lifetime? And vice versa. He explains, Nachmanides, Ramban explains that reincarnation, Gilgul, is an important concept that will explain why a child might suffer in this life. Rabbi, he made no sin. He's too young to have sinned. Yes, but what about his previous lifetime? It will explain why a perfectly righteous person might suffer in this life. That's something to really think about. Friends, it's so quiet on the Facebook chat here. I would love to hear your feedback. Is that because you're thinking or because you think I'm off the wall here with the ideas? Would love to hear your thoughts. There's a story. I think it's Nachmanides that brings the story of a businessman who was traveling. He stops at a river. He drinks and he falls asleep. Puts his bag of his wallet underneath him and he goes to sleep. He wakes up. He leaves and he leaves the site, but he forgets his bag of money over there. While he's gone, a poor person comes by, finds the wallet, and he takes it. And he goes. Meanwhile, a third person comes by, has a drink, falls asleep. While he's sleeping, the businessman comes back looking for his wallet, and he sees the man sleeping on the same spot that he was sleeping on a couple hours earlier. He wakes him up, he says, "Where's my money? Give me my money!" And the poor person was sleeping. He's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what money you're talking about. And take your money. Stop lying to me. And he beats him up. He searches his pockets. Obviously leaves empty-handed. And the observer, the onlooker here is shocked by God's injustice. Why did the businessman deserve to lose his money? Why did the innocent man deserve to get beaten up? And why did the poor person deserve to run off with the spoils, unscathed? Explains the master, the sage, that it's all about reincarnation in a previous lifetime. The second person had loaned money to the first person. So the first person, the businessman, owed money to the second person, but he never repaid him. He died before repaying the debt, and the heirs refused to pay the money back. They said, "We don't owe you anything." They had to come back to this world so that the rich man would lose the money to the second person. So now that debt was repaid. Who was the third person, the one that was beaten up? The third person in the previous lifetime was the judge who was bribed by the rich man, by the borrower in the previous lifetime, to rule in favor of the borrower so as not to return the monies to the lender. So it was the judge of the previous lifetime who returned back to this life to get beaten up. How's that for an interesting perspective on why the wicked prosper? Why the wicked suffer and the righteous prosper? How is that for an interesting perspective on why the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer? Interesting, right? Ramban cites at length from Maimonides, Rambam, whose arguments in Ramban's word have already made much of the inquiry into these matters irrelevant. One point that Maimonides makes there is that while the common people think that the joys in life are outweighed by its disappointments and pains, and that on the whole man was born to suffer, so common people might think that the joys in life are outweighed by the disappointments, and that on the whole man was born to suffer. The opposite is true. First of all, Maimonides says much of what we suffer can be attributed to our own shortcomings, whether needless strife and fighting, excessive food and indulgence, or pursuit of unnecessary wealth. In fact, achievement of excesses is not meaningful achievement at all. And in many cases is to the person's detriment rather than to their benefit. What we think is prospering is really bad for you. We see that the necessary things in life are generally abundant, like food and water. It is the unnecessary and air. It is the unnecessary things like precious gems that are rare. A person should think deeply about this, and he will see the goodness of his Creator and his beneficent arrangement of the world. For this reason, Rambam Maimonides seems unconcerned about the question of why the wicked people might prosper. He says, you don't get it. What you think is prospering is not prospering at all. You're eating all this good food. It's going to kill you. It's going to give you a heart attack and cancer, God forbid. All that sugar. God forbid. The good stuff in this world is free and abundant. It's air. It's water. It's food. That can be attributed to the exceeding kindness of God, who has built a world of kindness. So that's Maimonides' perspective on this. Still, Ramban observes, although what Maimonides writes is true on the whole, and it has strengthened many who grapple with these issues, there are individual instances of the righteous suffering that are still troubling. There are some righteous suffering that is unmistakably suffering. You can't say that the Holocaust, God forbid, was somehow good. We see righteous people slaughtered while bent over their holy books. How do you say that that was good for them? Or while fasting and praying with intense devotion. Remember the victims, the Jews who were killed in synagogue in the past couple of years? Pittsburgh, Poway, and other places, Jerusalem. We see children who are born deformed and some who are righteous and steeped in Torah study, but die before reaching adulthood. To address these questions, we must resort to the ideas that we've already explained here in today's class. Let me just close with the following comments. It is important to note that many of these questions arise because we are unaware of the complete picture. And that's the key here. When you think about reincarnation, you realize, I think that's really the key to the answer, to all of the answers that we've spoken about today. Whether you say that it's the son of a wicked father, or if it's an imperfectly wicked person or an imperfectly righteous person, we're saying that there's things that you don't understand. That our vision is limited. That's the answer. When we give you an answer like reincarnation, that there was a previous lifetime here that you know nothing about. When we say that there's a righteous son coming this way, there's a righteous heir to this wealth. When we're saying that the wicked will prosper so that somebody more wicked will suffer even more. When we say that this is about a trial to test the righteous, or maybe to sanctify the name of God, or maybe to test the onlookers, whether their loyalties are with resources or their loyalties are with God. All of these answers that we're saying today really share one underlying common theme, which is our inability to see the bigger picture. We're stuck with tunnel vision. And as long as we can accept our limitation, to realize that we are mortals, we cannot see what God sees, we can accept that we will never truly understand this. Perhaps that's what the Torah means when God answers Moses. He asks him, when Moses asks of God, reveal to me please your ways, and God says, I will be merciful. I'll show favor to those whom I choose to show favor. And I'll show mercy to those whom I choose to show mercy to. In other words, you can never truly understand this. I'd like to explain it to you, but you won't get it. Maybe that's why the Talmudic sages are arguing here whether Moses' request was answered, was acquiesced or not. According to Rabbi Yossi, God said, yes, here, I'll answer your question. And according to Rabbi Meir, God says, no, how could they be both right? There's one verse in the Torah. The answer is they were both right. God answered Moses by saying, the answer is unknowable to you. Your eyes simply cannot see what I see. You can't see the future. You can't see the past. You can't see beyond what meets the eye right now. And therefore, God did answer the question to Moses by saying that you cannot know this. And therefore, both Rabbi Meir, who says that God refused to acquiesce, and Rabbi Yossi, who says that God indeed acquiesced, are both true at the same time. This is beautiful stuff, friends. Ooh, I missed the comments coming in here. Sorry. Mickey, you're off the wall. Thank you, Mickey, for your brutal honesty. Terry, thank you. This is fascinating. A lot to think about. Dvorah Khan, at that point, to me, makes the most sense. I'm not sure which one you're referring to because I'm not looking at it in real time. I apologize. Stephanie, I feel better about reincarnation if I knew who I was before. Stephanie, maybe you don't want to know. Wouldn't that be nice if you could have like a rabbi that could look at you and say, you were the wicked Queen Isabel in a previous lifetime. You were killed for your sins and now you're back. Stephanie, I'll tell you who you were. I know who you were in a previous lifetime. You're about to find out. Stay tuned. Ed says, yes, so much is concealed, so much we cannot really know, so we cannot really know the answer. Funny, Stephanie. And reincarnation. Okay. Oh, you're talking about reincarnation. Good. So Dvorah Chana likes the answer to reincarnation. I'm not sure which Stephanie you're referring to. Oh, that's Stephanie. Good. Let me tell you who you were in a previous lifetime just in a moment. All right. So it is important to note that many of these questions arise because we are unaware of the complete picture. And that's the answer. The Chafetz Chaim likens this to a visitor who comes to town for Shabbos. And he's puzzled why the Gabbai, the person in charge of ritual at the shul, is giving aliyahs, Torah aliyahs, to different people without apparent rhyme or reason. Why is he getting called up to the Torah, not me? He passes over a prominent Kohen sitting right next to him to give the first aliyah to a Kohen at the back of the shul. The same appears to be happening for the second aliyah. And the third aliyah, this person is right in front of your face. Why didn't you give him the aliyah? Why do you have to look at the guy that's in the lobby? Where he seems to be giving aliyahs to people drawn seemingly at random from different parts of the shul. The truth, however, for the visitor is that the visitor is looking at only one Shabbos in shul. He doesn't realize that the Gabbai, the Steve Sandberg, has a very ordered system for giving out the aliyahs over the course of many weeks. He's got a refined system in place. He knows who's yahrzeit and who's got surgery and who needs who's got a birthday and who's got an anniversary and who's got something special going on. The Kohen he skipped this week was given an aliyah 2 weeks ago. The Levi he skipped had an aliyah the week before and so on. Only a person who sees the picture in its entirety understands how every part fits in. Mickey, I have to say, even you should get this. I believe that even you should understand this analogy. In this world, we see only a small snippet of history, of eternity, and of God's master plan. I really think that's not so crazy, Mick. Come on. It's really not so crazy. It's a fascinating, beautiful answer to a timeless question. And many times it takes the benefit of hindsight to appreciate God's workings. Hindsight is 20/20 vision. Chassam Sofer sees this message in God's answer to Moses. What does God answer Moses when in this entire episode of Talmud? You want to know my ways? He has to see God. V'ra'ita tachorai ufanai lo yera'u. You will see my back, but you won't see my front. What that means is you will see what is behind me, but what is in front of me will not be seen. It's only in retrospect that things become clear to us. That's what God was answering him. You will see my back, you will not see my front. You're incapable of seeing my front. You cannot know me from the front. You can only know me from the back. In retrospect, you say, that's why things happened the way they did. Because now we understand 2,000 years later how everything ended for the good. This approach outlined above resolves many questions, but not necessarily all questions. In the end, Rabbi Meir in our Talmud insists that God did not acquiesce to Moses' request, and he did not reveal to Moses the secret of his sometimes inscrutable ways in this matter. This seems to be the opinion of Rabbi Yanai, which I mentioned earlier in the Ethics of the Fathers, who says, it is not within our ability to grasp either the tranquility of the wicked or the suffering of the righteous. In the end, there may be things that will remain a mystery to us in this world, their ultimate meaning and purpose known only to God. I felt that there is no conflict between the two Talmudic sages. I feel that the Talmudic sages are both correct because God was both answering the request of Moses as well as denying the request by saying, I am unknowable. That's the answer. Rob, you said who made a donation. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about and who made a donation. Are you talking about today? Who made a donation to today's Torah study? Because it's unsponsored, if that's what you're talking about. You can sponsor Daily Torah Study at jewishgardens.com/donate or by calling the office at 561-624-2223. But you might have been talking about something else. I'm not sure. Whitney, is there something it's great to study with you in Holland, Whitney. It's awesome. Is there something as collective sin or collective soul reincarnating, or is soul already separate when entering this world? Whitney, you're talking about the concept of reincarnation. It's something which I'm not going to be able to squeeze into the next 3 minutes. We're going to have a class on reincarnation. I can feel it. It's coming up soon. But to answer your question briefly, in a nutshell, without too much explanation to go overboard here, collective sin, yes, there is something as collective sin. The sin of the golden calf was our national sin. Yeah. Collective soul reincarnating, potentially. Is a soul already separate when entering this world? I don't understand your question. I'm not sure what that means. So let me wrap it up by answering Stephanie's question. Oh, Mickey's writing. Ooh, that I can see that we may not know why something happens, but not the reincarnation that I'm punished or benefit because of my ancestor. As you pointed out earlier, the provision in the Torah about the sins of the fathers, if I have the same sins. Mickey, no, it's not your ancestors. If you reincarnated, it doesn't mean that your ancestor sinned and you being punished for the sin of your ancestor. This is you. If you lived in the days of the Romans, in the days of the destruction of the temple, or if you were alive during the Holocaust, or if you were alive during the first crusade or the Spanish Inquisition, that means you, not your ancestor, you, Mickey, would be punished or rewarded for what you experienced in a previous lifetime. It's not the sin of your ancestor. You're misunderstanding the meaning of reincarnation. Reincarnation is not that I'm the descendant of a previous lifetime. It means I am that same person. I just got into a new taxi. Instead of getting into the same old taxi, which is the body, I'm getting into a new taxi, my new body. It's the same soul, same you. Rob, I'm so sorry. You were listing the reasons for an aliyah. I added one who made a donation. Yes, I'm sorry. I should check this out in real time. The comments coming in. The one who gets an aliyah. What a beautiful example from the Chafetz Chaim. Maybe the guy got an aliyah because he made a donation, because he sponsored the Kiddush. Maybe that's why he's getting an aliyah. How do you know, right? Let me just conclude by answering Stephanie's question. You want to know who you were in a previous lifetime? Stephanie, don't get stressed out. Here goes. You ready? The Arizal tells us, the saintly Arizal, the Kabbalist 500 years ago, tells us that the generation that died in the desert, the ones that came out of Egypt and did not merit to enter the promised land, that generation, the ones who died in the 40 years of wandering in the desert, that ate the manna, they are the ones that will come back to this world, reincarnated, when we are at the cusp, at the threshold of entering the promised land a second time with the coming of Mashiach. Since the Rebbe promised us that ours is the generation that will welcome Mashiach, that ours is the generation that Mashiach is coming in our lifetime, therefore, we are that generation. So don't get nervous. We've all been here before. We were the ones who experienced the 10 plagues coming out of Egypt. We were the ones that ate the manna for 40 years. We were the ones that complained in the desert, that crossed the Red Sea, that received the Torah on Mount Sinai, that complained about the food in the desert. What else is new? Sounds familiar. We were the ones that refused to enter the promised land. And we've come back to this world to make a tikkun, to make right on our bad decision. We're coming back to this world in order to get it right this time. To say, yes, we are on board. I do believe in Mashiach. I do believe in Mashiach. Mashiach is coming. And I too will enter the promised land. Look who is here with us. This is Devorah. Devorah, let's say hello. Hello to Tati's class. How are you? What's your name?
Fafa.
Fafa. And Devorah, can you say Torah? Do you want to say a pasuk Torah?
Yeah.
Go for it. Say Torah. Go say
Taya.
Torah. Torah.
Sifa.
Siva.
Manu.
Lano.
Maisha.
Maisha.
Kia.
Mayrasha.
Kia.
Kehilas.
Naka.
Yaakov! That verse, which is the first verse you're supposed to teach a Jewish child as soon as they learn to speak, is Torah that Moses taught us, is the birthright of the entire congregation of Jacob. Right here is the future of the Jewish people. You're looking at the future. We are talking about the past, about our reincarnation. Stephanie, we've got a lot to talk about who we were in a previous lifetime and how we can make sure to take advantage of our mistakes in the previous lifetime. Let's ponder this deeply to make sure that we don't mess us up. The main thing is we have to believe in Mashiach. We have to prepare ourselves to enter the promised land, because the mistakes of the generation that died in the desert is what we're about to fix in this lifetime. Mashiach is coming very soon. So let's hang in there. Let's make it happen. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here today this morning. Was the manna low carb and cute? Thank you very much, everybody. Shalom, over and out. Today is Wednesday, right? Corey's Tehillim class is today at 11:30 on Zoom, jewishgardens.com/Zoom, and Rebbe Tzimchan is giving a class on procrastination tonight, on ethics of the fathers, tonight at 8 o'clock. Also on Zoom, jewishgardens.com/Zoom with Rebbe Tzimchan. So join us there, and we'll see you later. Don't forget, by the way, one quick announcement. Tomorrow at 2:30, we're having a very special event, Black Hats and Black Jews. It's a special interview with two Jews of color. One of them is a Chabad rabbi who is black, and another one is a member of our community who is black, talking about social prejudice in the Jewish community. We'll be doing that on Facebook Live, facebook.com/Jewish Gardens, right here tomorrow at 2:30 p.m., talking about social prejudice in the Jewish community. We'll see you there. Shalom, tomorrow, 2:30.